Can you hear me on this mic? It's okay? Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Henry Sheldon Museum. We're so glad you all can be here for today's program. I have a couple of just notes of gratitude and a few announcements to share, and then we'll get started. So first off, I want to thank Vermont Humanities and the Samara Fund at the Vermont Community Foundation for support for this program. And also thanks to co-host Valley Village, which is a community-based organization across the state in Townsend that's committed to providing affordable housing and supportive services to residents who want to age in place. And thank you to NCTV for your technology support and live streaming today's program for those who couldn't join us in person. I also want to give a special shout out to Allison Cardin, our Public History Fellow, who has been organizing this project with Andy Ingall and the team at the museum over the last couple of months. So here's what we have in store for you today. So Andy is going to give a talk that'll be about 40 minutes. And after that, he'll lead us in a participatory exercise and dialogue. I'm curious about that. And that will be followed by a short panel discussion with Andy and special guest Gail Golec, who's over here, Dr. Francois Clemens, and Eva Garcelin Hart. Jeanette Langston is under the weather, so she'll be joining us virtually today. And you can read their full bios on our website as well as on Andy's website. And then we'll also have some time for a Q&A. And if that wasn't enough, after today's program, for those who wish, there will be a little gathering over at the cemetery where Charity and Sylvia are buried to pay respects to our wonderful Waybridge couple. And if you need directions, there's slips of paper down at the front desk. It's about a 6-minute drive. It's not far from here. It's a beautiful afternoon, and if you haven't been to the cemetery, it's a really special place. And if you've been, you already know how special it is. So a quick housekeeping note. So our restroom is located on the first floor. It's just to the left of the stairwell that you came up. There are exits at the back and the front of the building. And then I just wanted to share that our upcoming Henry Sheldon Museum annual meeting is on November 18th this year, and it's from 5 to 6:30 at the Middlebury Inn. Everybody is welcome, and we will be sharing updates from the staff and trustees, including our new mission and vision. And then we will also be hosting a discussion on LGBTQ history and sharing and preserving the stories in our community with leaders from across the state, including Meg Tamalonis, Bill Lippert, who's joining us here today, Kathy Resmer, and Joseph Watson, all of whom have been working to uncover and care for and share these histories and stories. Okay. So now I would like to invite Vermont Humanities Executive Director and friend of the Sheldon Museum, Christopher Kaufman-Ilstrup, to say a few words.
Really, not very much. I want to thank Coco and Andy and Francois and everybody who had a hand in putting this event together. It's actually the closing event of our Fall Festival of the Humanities, which takes place every year in October, which, if you didn't know, it's National Arts and Humanities Month every October. So we have a festival every year. This year's festival is called Resilient Patterns, and it's mostly been about how we adapt and change in the face of difficult times. And certainly this presentation has been about that, and also about the resiliency of the LGBTQ community over many decades, and indeed the entire history of Vermont, as we learn in the story of Charity and Sylvia. So I'm really glad that this is the closing event. We've had 11 events. Ada Limon was in UVM last week as part of the festival. We had the Way with Words co-hosts talking about the origins of words that we associate with resilience and adaptation last week as well. But events up and down the state. Next year, look for more about Charity and Sylvia, and I'll leave it at that. I'm going to turn it over to Andy, who's the keynote speaker. He's been working in arts, culture, and community engagement for over 20 years as a curator, scholar, writer, performer, and producer. With a background in theater, performance, and museum studies, Andy has organized dozens of exhibitions and public programs. He's a past fellow at LABA New York, a laboratory for Jewish culture based at Manhattan's 14th Street Y, and he currently serves as an ambassador for the Foundation for Social Connection. Welcome, Andy, to Vermont.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. My family lost touch with Warren and Leon over a century ago. And then 4 years ago, we had a family reunion. But it wasn't in person, it wasn't on Zoom, it was up here. Let me move back a bit. Leon is on the left, Warren is on the right. Nikki, the Pekingese, is leaking through the door. Leon and Warren died in 2002 and 2007, respectively. This posthumous reunion with Warren and Leon was incredibly generative. It released creative and intellectual energies that were either dormant or I didn't even know they existed. It offered some ancestral healing, too. And getting to know Warren and Leon helped me appreciate some of the values that they held dear. Number one, be engaged with your community. Number two, keep moving forward. Anticipate the good stuff that comes with aging, as well as the challenges. My mother likes to say, getting old isn't for sissies. Well, this sissy is trying to be prepared about the future. And number three, preserve and pass down your legacy. So that's why we're gathered here this afternoon. My hope is that some reflection that arises, some story, some comment or question will help move this conversation forward. A critical conversation about care, connection, and community. Let's see. I want to advance the slide backwards. Been having a hard time calling up the, let's see. Can you do a manual backwards?
Yep.
Perfect. Before I begin, I want to dedicate our afternoon together to Leah Smith. I'm sure many of you know. 2 weeks ago, police confirmed the death of Leah, a Middlebury College student who ended her life. She was a double major in computer science and statistics, a competitive diver, a member of the chess and Japanese clubs, and an advocate for transgender rights. The core of the Warlay Project is honoring LGBTQ+ ancestors and transcestors. Leah has joined our other forebears, but way too soon. Warren and Leon, Charity and Sylvia, and so many more known and unknown. May her memory be a blessing and a call to action to strengthen opportunities for connection and to provide greater access to mental health resources. Let's lead our lives with curiosity, empathy, and acceptance, rather than leading with fear and hate. And if you want to honor Leah right now, or anyone else, your ancestors, your friends, your beloveds, I'm going to go around the room, and and I'm going to ask you all to say their names. Also on live stream, hello live streamers. If you want to put a name in the comment, Drew from Middlebury Community TV will read those as well. So let's begin on this side of the room, okay? Any names?
Can you name somebody who I love? Emily?
Joe Kennedy.
Thank you. Joe Kennedy.
David Ray.
Cousin Richard Bradvon.
Dick Radvin from CBST. Yes?
Yeah, I think so.
I knew Dick.
Really? We'll talk.
Yes, Timmy.
Claire Fullenweiler.
And Drew, if there are any coming in, let us know. Yes, Francois.
Luana Boswell, my sister, 1975. She committed suicide.
May her memory be a blessing.
Amen.
Okay. I'm going to hand this off to Dr. Francois Clemens to lead us in song.
There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged and I think my work in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. Lord, there is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul.
Where are we going?
Let's see. It's online,
Oh, right.
so there's a slide that I don't know why I posted.
I'm gonna move over there, Mike.
Yeah.
Sure. There it is, there it is. I got it. Want me to move forward?
Yeah. I don't trust myself.
Going more?
Uh,
We're all the way.
Right here.
I'm gonna move. Oh, my heart. Oh, my heart. Amen.
Oh, no, there you go.
yeah.
We're good. Yeah, so that's nothing.
Thank you for your patience. Yes, hello.
All right, can I add a name?
Please.
Ben Chase.
Ben Chase.
Ben Chase.
Thank you. Warren and Leon moved to Townsend in 1980. For those who don't know, Townsend is about half an hour drive to Bellows Falls. When Warren and Leon arrived in Windham County, Bellows Falls was emerging from a rough patch in history. Long gone were the 19th century railroad barons, the paper mills, and bustling commerce along the Connecticut River. According to Gail Golec, who's here with us and we'll hear more from later, in her podcast, which you should all listen to, The Secret Life of Death, Bellows Falls in the 70s was a hard-drinking, down-on-its-luck, blue-collar mill town. But there was a bright, colorful, and glittering spot in the center of town. Sorry about that. Allison, I think going forward, it'd be great if you could advance the slides and I'll be cueing you.
Of course.
It's very uncooperative.
Very uncooperative.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go, perfect. Andrew's Inn was arguably the first gay-owned bar and hotel in Vermont. From the mid-70s into the early 80s, queer folks visited both from the surrounding area and across the Northeast. They came from Boston, Albany, New York City, where I'm from, and they came from Montreal. They came from White River Junction, Rutland, Montpelier, Burlington, Middlebury. Where else are people from today? Shout it out.
Heinsberg.
Middlebury.
Middlebury. Okay.
Putney.
Putney. Welcome.
Glover.
I'm sure people from Brattleboro will go up to the Andrews Inn.
Absolutely. Andrews Inn transformed Bellows Falls into Fellows Balls. There was buzz, and of course a bit of fuzz. Some locals embraced the idea of a queer mecca in Vermont. At the same time, there were incidents of vandalism, bomb threats, anti-gay demonstrations, and physical assaults. I can't say for sure, but I'm betting that Warren and Leon in Townsend visited Andrews Inn out of curiosity. As gentlemen of a certain age, Warren and Leon probably didn't stay out too late at the disco, but I've learned that Leon loved to dance. Maybe they heard about the gourmet dinners served on Saturday nights. In 1980, a reporter from The Advocate sat at a table near the lobby's fireplace. He offered a glowing review of his meal. He wrote, "There was a choice of chicken curry, sweet and sour scallops, steak, or a vegetarian dish called tofu. Very different, but delicious to this meat eater. With the dinner were fresh vegetables, a house salad, winter squash soup, good, and homemade bread, of which I had seconds. Dessert was a rich peach brandy sponge cake." Warren and Leon appreciated fine dining. They liked to entertain friends and neighbors at home. They served sherry and Bailey's Irish cream in tiny crystal glasses. Warren baked Spanish flan, rich and silky smooth. My knowledge of Warren and Leon is spotty. Friends of theirs have shared memories with me. Over the past several years, I've been gathering pieces of the narrative. Like an antiques collector or a curator, I examine objects closely in order to make sense of them. What stories are these artifacts telling me? What is their provenance? Within the collection, some pieces of porcelain are intact. Some of the crystal is chipped. I've tossed tchotchkes that are meaningless. Unfortunately, some of the most valuable objects are lost. Welcome to War Lane. It's a Mantiques roadshow, an attempt to reconstruct fragments and to assemble facts and myths. Part of that work is filling in the gaps. And to do that, I need to conjure what's not there. So what treasures have I found so far? Essays, letters, and poems written by Warren, artwork by Leon. There are decorative objects and bric-a-brac that they sold and gifted, some of which was gifted to me. And the most important primary sources? Friends of Warren and Leon who are still living today in New York and Vermont. I even tracked down a Brazilian cousin of Leon's living in Rio de Janeiro. So if you're watching the live stream, Hélène, hello. But had I actually met Warren and Leon 30 years ago, I'm not sure they would have provided answers to all my questions. There are experiences that are just too painful to share. There are events and relationships that we keep quiet. In 1979, Warren and Leon bought a 10-acre property in Townsend. The plot of land included a brick federal-style farmhouse, a sugar shack, 2 sheds, and a garage that they converted into an antique store. That's it. The exterior was unremarkable, but walking inside was like entering a portal into another world. It was a cabinet of curiosities and exotic treasures. Next one. They proudly informed customers that Worley specialized in fine European antiques. According to one of my interview subjects, if a tourist showed up at their doorstep in search of early Americana, Warren practically chased them away. He'd bark, "We have no country furniture." They loved Europe. That was where Leon entered the fashion industry in the 1930s. And in the years following World War II, Warren worked as a journalist and learned the antiques trade in the south of France. Here's a photo I took last year. The former location of Worley on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. The store was in between the for rent sign and the coffee shop. It was only 300 square feet. Soon after I began research on Worley, I interviewed my Aunt Nancy. Back in the early 70s, she was studying social work in graduate school in New York. One day, she was window shopping along Lexington Avenue, and at 80th Street, she stopped in front of a small storefront. It dazzled like a jewel box, full of color, light, texture, and pattern. She was mesmerized. Nancy didn't remember too many details about the boutique, but I found this description in the New York Times shortly after Worley opened. The year was 1958. Here are some images generated by AI to help you visualize. In the window, reposing on a bed of luscious red felt, is a hot chocolate service of eggshell Sèvres china. Next slide, Allison. Within the boutique, a crimson rug continues the red theme of the window decor. Rich blue is splashed over the walls, and shelves are laden with everything from French cologne to Italian alabaster paperweights studded with tiny gold bugs. And Q magazine pronounced that, quote, "Worley is tiny but neat. No jumble shot this." On the elegant side, it offers the best of the old combined with the best of the new. Aunt Nancy felt compelled to enter. Inside the shop, there was an older gentleman with thick white hair, slim, aristocratic, and dapper. It was Leon, or Léon, with an accent aigu over the E. And his accent was hard to place. A little bit Russian, a little bit German, a dash of French, very continental. He smiled at Nancy. She thought he looked familiar and familial. They discovered that they shared the same last name. They were second cousins. Actually, this was not the first time that Nancy met Leon. They met when Nancy, her sister, and my dad were kids in the 1950s. But she barely remembered that. Nancy and Leon's conversation was pleasant, friendly, and brief. She left the store, never saw him again. That was the last point of contact between my branch of the family and Leon. One more detail about the shop was reported in Q magazine. The author writes, Warren Kronemeyer, Worley's owner, has opened this boutique as a branch of a shop he operated on the Riviera for 10 years. New Yorkers will make him welcome again in his hometown. But Warren was not the sole owner of Worley. All you have to do is look at the logo. First thing you notice is the unique lettering, most likely hand-drawn by Leon. Warren and Leon, Worley. This is a wardrobe trunk, also known as a portmanteau. Parlez-vous français? Un petit peu. Well, this is a college town, of course. So in French, what does porter mean?
Where?
To carry or wear. Yes, carry or wear. And manteau?
Coat.
Coat. Portmanteau. Also known as a wardrobe steamer trunk. And a portmanteau has two parts that are hinged together. On one side, you store your garments. So that could be dresses, gowns, slacks, shirts. And on the other side, you have these compartments to store accessories like hats, gloves, shoes, belts, hosiery, socks, and unmentionables. In his writing, Lewis Carroll invented portmanteau words. These are lexical blends, combinations of two words into one. So for example, if Alice and Humpty Dumpty were here today, they might be chillaxing over brunch at Rosie's. Next slide, please. A portmanteau was essential luggage if you traveled on steamships in the post-war years. A fashion designer like Leon would have schlepped several trunks on business trips. Leon's career in fashion began in Berlin. He was born into an assimilated Jewish family in Russia. But he spent his teenage years and young adulthood in Weimar, Germany. His family fled there after the Bolshevik Revolution. Tukey Archives helped me learn a bit about Leon's early professional life. I located a dossier on Leon, and next slide, please. This is the dossier. It was in the French National Archives. Between 1936 and 1938, Leon paid several visits to the French consulate in Berlin. He needed permission to travel to Paris, ostensibly for work. In his visa application, he stated that his employer, Max Behrendt, sent him to Paris 4 times a year. There he was planning to attend haute couture fashion shows at department stores and private showrooms. An employer, like Max Behrendt, would provide designers, like Leon, with an expense account. And with that money, he'd purchase samples of gowns, bring them back to Berlin, develop dress patterns, and copy them for mass production. The second archive is in Townsend, and it's a glimpse into the working life of a ready-to-wear designer in the mid-20th century. Sketches, drawings, size charts, newspaper clippings, and photography. The Thompson family was part of Leon and Warren's circle of friends. Warren and Leon recognized that Eliza Thompson, at a young age, expressed an interest in art and design. They designated her as the keeper of Leon's collection. I mentioned Leon's employer, Max Behrendt. Like all Jewish-owned businesses, Behrendt's company was ultimately Aryanized and liquidated by the Nazis. But Behrendt had the foresight to open a satellite business in England. He emigrated to London in 1935. 4 years later, he assembled a team of his former employees who also had the determination, luck, and the financial resources to escape the Nazis. That team included Leon. I know this because Liza's collection includes this invitation to the opening of Behrendt's first and last collection with his British company. The card is dated September 6, 1939, just 5 days after Hitler invaded Poland. With Leon's help, Behrendt launched a collection of sports suits, dresses, gowns, and skirts. So clearly, the war was not going to stop the fashion world.
No.
Take a close look at this invitation. On the front is an illustration of a woman in high heels. The hemline is just below the knee. The waist is tiny, lots of fabric to emphasize and widen the hips. Her cigarette smoke curves elegantly in the air, just like her hourglass figure. The shoulder pads are sized for a football player. She's chic, modern, and self-possessed. And this archetype appears again and again in Leon's illustrations and drawings. Femme and butch. Think Joan Crawford, who starred in The Women, a film that was released in 1939, the same year Leon designed the collection. When Leon began his career in fashion in Germany, Berlin was a major European manufacturing center for ready-to-wear clothing. By the mid-1920s, there were 80,000 companies, half of them Jewish-owned, and they employed around 200,000 workers, including Leon. As a young gay man in Berlin, Leon lived with his parents in Nollendorfplatz, a city square that was and remains the city's LGBT neighborhood. By the late 1920s, Berlin boasted 160 gay bars and clubs. And the neighborhood of Nolli, where the Ingall family lived, was the epicenter of queer culture. Leon's apartment was just a few blocks from where Marlene Dietrich performed. And around the corner, Christopher Isherwood wrote the Berlin Stories, the basis for the musical Cabaret. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Next slide, please, Elsa. For Leon, the city must have been a great source of inspiration. The Berliners who patronized these gathering spots helped fuel his creativity, his social life, and I imagine his sex life. Next slide. To learn about the next chapter of Leon's migration story, I relied on his case file from the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. HIAST remains the oldest resettlement organization in the world, now serving immigrants and refugees of all backgrounds. This dossier includes an affidavit signed by my grandfather, Morris Ingall, on behalf of Leon. Morris served as guarantor for several relatives escaping the anti-Semitism of Europe. They longed for freedom and economic opportunity. My grandfather had arrived in Boston from a town in Ukraine only a few decades before Leon. Leon sailed from Liverpool on the SS Samaria on November 8th, 1940. The voyage to New York took 11 days. Maybe he passed the time sketching and drawing. In order to get a job in the US, Leon needed a portfolio of drawings and illustrations to show potential employers. Liza and her Aunt Jeannie are the keepers of Leon's sketchbooks. Each one is spiral bound with a black cardboard cover. There's a bold logo featuring Leon's full name in Russian, Leonid. And the design incorporates 3 cosmopolitan cities where fashion ruled: London, Paris, New York. Berlin isn't included. I don't think Leon wanted to dwell on the past. He was focused on the future. The women Leon imagined in pen and paper are independent and emancipated. Perhaps they're stand-ins for himself. To forge a new path, you need to conjure strength and confidence. You need to access superhuman powers. Maybe you're frightened, but you project fearlessness. Your makeup is a mask for your anxiety. Your clothing is your armor. When the ship docked in New York, Leon must have taken the train to Boston. Morris and Grandma Bess took him in during the winter of 1940. My dad was a newborn baby. I'm sure Leon didn't want to overstay his welcome. So by March of 1940, he left Boston and returned to New York. He listed his place of residence on West 77th Street in a declaration of intention. This form was the first step towards citizenship. America's entry into World War II put a pause on Leon's fashion career. But the draft was advantageous for Leon and other immigrants. Conscription was a fast track to naturalization, and the army was where Leon met his lifelong partner, Warren Kronemeyer. The military presented transformative opportunities for gay men and lesbians, particularly those who felt isolated in rural, sparsely populated communities. Most certainly, queer soldiers faced discrimination. Homosexuality, of course, was considered a mental illness. But at the same time, the military provided a setting for lesbians and gay men to find friendship, intimacy, and love. Several years ago, I interviewed Dr. Bob Backus. He practiced medicine in the West River Valley for over 40 years. He worked at Grace Cottage Hospital in Townsend. Bob was Warren and Leon's primary care physician, and he was also their friend. Bob and his wife Carol described Warren and Leon as intelligent and inspiring, funny and fun to be with. I asked Bob how he met them. Bob explained that he was in his office at the hospital in Townsend one afternoon. He learned that a neighbor down the road was not feeling well. He decided to make a house call. That's what small town doctors did back in the day. Bob said, "As soon as I walked through the door, Warren flopped to the floor. he was having a cardiac arrest. That was our introduction. I performed CPR, and it was one of those extremely rare cases of success. Warren immediately came back to life, and boy, did he come back. Warren was asking me pointed questions. What happened? Who are you? You did what? Leon intervened and scolded Warren. This man just saved your life. Don't be so rude. Next slide. I learned from Bob that before and after the war, Warren was working in Europe as a journalist for Reuters. He would travel through cities and towns on bicycle and conduct interviews for newspapers and wire services. He eventually revealed to Bob that his army duties were more specialized compared to an average soldier. He was an operative for the OSS. The Office of Strategic Services was a wartime intelligence agency. It ultimately transformed into the CIA. There was a semi-strict code of silence among OSS alumni. I got a hold of Warren's obituary, published in the Brattleboro Reformer. I can say with some degree of certainty that Warren wrote it. It mentions his time in the Army, but no mention of his OSS service. What did Warren actually do during his time with the OSS? Did he recruit agents? Conduct sabotage? Did he run propaganda efforts? In Vichy France, did he seduce members of the Gestapo in dark alleys and slit their throats? Or was he simply listening to enemy radio, transcribing and translating? I searched the OSS personnel files in the National Archives. Warren isn't listed. But that didn't concern me. I thought to myself, archives are incomplete, records get lost. So I couldn't verify that Warren was a spy, but I could verify from his friends in Townsend that Warren had the gift of the gab. He could spin a yarn. Warren was a dramatic storyteller. So I'm holding multiple truths. At the time I interviewed Dr. Bob Backus, I hadn't yet learned that Leon also worked in intelligence. But this time I had real proof. Leon was a Ritchie boy. Has anyone heard of the Ritchie boys? No? The Army assigned him to Camp Ritchie in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Maryland. Okay, so who were the Ritchie boys? In 1942, at Camp Ritchie, the U.S. Army opened an MITC, a military intelligence training center. But according to one Ritchie boy, those initials might have stood for Military Institute of Total Confusion. Graduates of this training program compared Camp Ritchie to a circus, a summer camp, and a resort, all rolled into one. Most recruits had no military instincts whatsoever. They were intellectuals with high IQs. They were fluent in languages useful for the war effort, such as German, French, or Russian. 20% were Jewish refugees, like Leon, who wanted to fulfill their patriotic duties and fight Nazism. They took an 8-week intensive course in mobile radio broadcasting, Morse code, aerial photography, psychological warfare, and hand-to-hand combat. Many graduates went overseas to gather intelligence on European battlefields. They interrogated both POWs and civilians. Some Ritchie boys went on to careers as spies and saboteurs at the OSS. And Leon was not the only gay Ritchie boy. James Lord was an art critic who wrote biographies of Picasso and Giacometti. Here he is in his Paris apartment, photographed by Henri Cartier-Bresson. Lord wrote a memoir called My Queer War. It's a coming-of-age story set during his army service. James Lord often felt conflicted about what he was fighting for. War in any era is a strange, messed up experience. And his life during wartime was confusing and wondrous because it was there that he had his first sexual awakening. At Camp Ritchie, they were comrades to ogle and admire, including one soldier who slept across from him. He wrote, "He was strikingly good looking, dark hair, green eyes, and an irresistible smile of a cheetah, built like a Greek statue, and he merrily bragged, endowed by nature with the biggest cock west of the pyramids, a boast ratified daily by awed and envious stares in the showers." Gay people working in intelligence had nothing to lose and everything to prove. Information gathering or espionage was a test of one's courage and patriotism. Arguably, LGBTQ folks were ideal candidates. They knew how to communicate in code. Concealment and covert activity were second nature to them. This pattern of concealing and revealing continued into Warren and Leon's twilight years. In the late 90s, Warren required extra support to care for Leon, who was suffering from Alzheimer's. Warren was struggling as the primary caregiver. Their social worker, Janet Kramer, who lives in Brattleboro and is still around, had been working with them long enough to gain their trust. She asked why Leon wasn't receiving support from the VA. He was a veteran, like Warren. Warren confessed that Leon had no health benefits. Leon was discharged from the military without honor because he was homosexual. I was able to procure Leon's Section 8 discharge papers from the National Archives. And this is how I learned Leon was a Ritchie boy. Despite his skills as an intelligence observer and his training as a Russian translator, he was deemed mentally unfit for service, not eligible for reenlistment, induction, or reinduction, not entitled to mustering out payment, and ultimately not entitled to veterans' benefits. So Warren and Leon's care team urged them to have a civil union in 2001. The year before, in 2000, as I'm sure all of you know, Vermont made history as the first US state to legalize civil unions for same-sex couples. According to historian Alan Berube, the discharge process for homosexuals included abusive interrogations about personal relationships or solitary confinement in hospitals and stockades. I can imagine Leon feeling isolated, frightened, and depressed. If Leon ended up at a psych clinic, was Warren able to communicate with him in person or by letter? Did he provide courage and comfort for Leon to persevere? Janet, the social worker, shared a letter that Warren wrote to her in 2002, shortly after Leon's death. Warren reveals the following to her. "I go around the house in a kind of dream. I get up in the middle of the night to check on Leon, make certain he is okay. And of course he is not there. I sit down on his bed and I think of the past. I wake up an hour later, still sitting there. During the day, I try to make order, deciding what should stay, what should go, and if it's to go, where. But things are slowly getting better. Slowly, I gain some control of my thoughts. I'm learning to live without Leon and make a new, different life. You have been a wonderful friend to us, Janet. From the day we first met you, I will always think of you with affection and thankfulness. I wish you happiness. Warren K. Warren eventually moved into a small residential care home just up the road from the brick farmhouse. He and Leon made an arrangement with Grace Cottage to donate their house and property in exchange for lifelong care. Their farmhouse still stands, almost structurally unchanged, and it's now part of Valley Village, we heard earlier from Coco, an affordable senior living community. The paint in the kitchen is the same today as it was in the 80s. In the summer of 2022, I attended a ceremony acknowledging Warren and Leon's generosity and legacy. Both Grace Cottage and Valley Village installed commemorative plaques in their buildings. Valley Village also unveiled a rainbow-colored sculpture designed by Robert Dugrenier, a renowned glass artist who lives in Townsend and who knew Warren and Leon. That ceremony also acknowledged efforts by Valley Village and Grace Cottage to increase their attention and focus on LGBTQ+ elders. They formed an equity team made up of staff and community members. And over the past few years, Grace Cottage has earned top scores in the Human Rights Campaign's Healthcare Equality Index. Here's me and Joanne Blanchard, Executive Director of Valley Village. At the commemoration for Warren and Leon, Joanne introduced me to a lesbian resident at Valley Village. We had an opportunity to chat. It was a meaningful moment to learn that Warren and Leon's legacy is much more expansive than I could ever imagine. During a period of sheltering in place, my research into the lives of Warren and Leon was a vehicle to travel across time and space, a portal to the Worley multiverse. I crossed the Atlantic with them on the Queen Elizabeth. I was a guest at Leon's luxurious ancestral home in Tsarist Russia. I danced with him at Weimar cabarets, reviews, and queer nightclubs. I bicycled with Warren in the French Riviera. But this journey isn't entirely fantasy. Warren and Leon's legacy is real. The connections I've made with their friends are real. The feeling that I met them is real. There's so much joy in discovering queer kin. But at the same time, there's grief and regret. Why did these branches on the Ingall family tree sever after Leon moved out of my grandparents' home? I missed the opportunity to connect with them when I was coming out 30 years ago. I like to think that Warren and Leon would have enjoyed a visit from their younger cousin. I admire the life they created for themselves in Vermont, surrounded by maple forests and friends. They developed new root systems to anchor themselves. I'm grateful that Warren and Leon found each other. I'm grateful that they found family, a logical family that supplanted and supplemented a biological family. I'm here in Middlebury to remember Warren and Leon, but I'm also here to honor another couple. Tom Herman and Jeremy Yost. They are alive and well. They were the co-owners of the Andrews Inn from 1979 to 1984. Have you all heard of the Andrews Inn? Okay, well, you're going to learn more about it. Andrews Inn was more than a business. And I understand now why it deserves its state historical marker, because it was a rare gathering place for community care and connection. With great emotion, Jeremy shared the following with me. Once you entered those big, beautiful hotel doors and you closed them, you were in a safe haven. That's what we could offer, a safe space. We didn't even think of that as being part of Innkeepers. Another elder is here with us today, the esteemed Dr. Francois Scarborough Clemens, AKA Officer Clemens, AKA Maestro Clemens, AKA Diva Man. And we're here to celebrate our ancestors as well. Like Tom and Jeremy, Charity Bryant and Sylvia Drake were entrepreneurs. Back in the early 19th century, they also contributed to the local economy and civic life. Their tailoring business in Weybridge apprenticed and employed dozens of young women in the needle trade. But the most noteworthy fact about Charity and Sylvia, Weybridge viewed them and treated them not just as companions, but as a married couple. That's 150 plus years before Vermont made same-sex civil unions and marriages legal. Here's their double silhouette, part of the collection of the Sheldon Museum. It's framed by pink silk and hair that loops and curves around them, and there's a heart between the two of them. Charity and Sylvia, Tom and Jeremy, Warren and Leon. These LGBTQ plus folks made their mark in Vermont history. But there are so many others on whose shoulders we stand. Those who aren't as well known or haven't yet been discovered. Those without names and records on Ancestry.com. So here's my invitation to you. Speculate. Conjecture. Imagine what caregiving could look like in the future without constraints or restrictions. Imagine the lives of people in your family tree, biological or logical. Repair branches on your family tree, if that's possible. Seek out new root systems and graft onto them. Plant new trees, preferably maple, and see what grows. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next portion of the program. Take a look at this cradle. It's from 1815. It's also part of the Sheldon Museum collection. It once belonged to Charity and Sylvia. So it's not a baby cradle, it's an adult cradle. In the Shaker tradition, it can be called a granny cradle. Like many people in the early 19th century, Charity and Sylvia suffered from a variety of illnesses. So when one got sick, the other rocked her gently to fall asleep, to relieve anxiety, to ease the pain. Rocking not only soothed the sick, but also did some good for the caregiver. So let's rock. I mean, literally, let's rock. This is the participatory part of the program. This can be done seated or standing, but preferably standing if you can. And for those who wish to do this activity with a partner, that's great. So choose a partner. Maybe it's someone who you didn't come with today. Okay? And if you are with a partner, so everyone stand up if you can, or do this seated. It's up to you. Same with those of you on the live stream. Has everyone found a partner? And last time around, I have to say, in Bellows Falls, there was a throuple. So we had couples and we had a throuple, which made it extremely queer. So I want one person to face the other. That feels a little intense. You can do
All
it
right,
back to back.
face me. Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Give each other a hug if you want. I love that.
What are we doing? Hugging? Hugging? Yeah.
Now we're gonna do a little dance together, okay? So I want one of you to put your arms on your shoulders.
Okay.
Yeah. The other one can put it on
I'm
the
looking
shoulder
at
of your
him.
waist, whatever's easiest.
The other one on the shoulder? Yeah. I don't know if this is
While we were talking, what's the direction?
What's the next direction?
Oh, this direction.
This direction. Oh.
all right, Andy, go on.
You
Come
have
on,
your
Andy.
partner or your couple or your throuple.
Oh,
Yeah, so arms on, I think for the throuple, maybe arms on your shoulders. See that? So I want you to start rocking together for about 30 seconds. Just to try it out, okay?
One,
It doesn't have to be so fast.
Yeah.
Really slow, preferably slow.
So.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, now, you're doing great. I have a question for you. As you're rocking together, please everyone, quiet for a second. Just focus on the rocking. Now, I have a question for you. You can close your eyes if you want. Who are the people in your neighborhood? In your neighborhood. In your neighborhood. And by neighborhood, I mean, think about 3 to 6 people in your life who you can reach out to for support. That could be emotional support. That could be physical support. That could be financial support. Picture them in your mind. And if no one comes to mind, that's okay. Imagine people in your life currently who have the potential to become folks you can rely on. Let's take a minute with this, okay? Okay, thank you. I'd like you all to take a seat now, and I want you to discuss with your group the following. So here's the question for you to discuss. What would a system of support and care look like in the future? And Allison, I think I might have these questions on the next slide. Yeah. What would a system of support and care look like in the future? Maybe it's going to come from institutions. Maybe that support is going to come from your neighbors, other individuals. There are no constraints, okay? Don't think about SNAP. Don't think about our healthcare system as it currently is, okay? Or isn't. There are no constraints, only an abundance of care and support. What would that look like for you? So, discuss.
The kids in my class have a little bit of problem. That's a shock and amazing.
So I don't know. Yeah.
It's like 40 minutes. That's what I do. Everything is funded. It's funding for home care. Whatever, more than 20. I think we also need to be really
That's my voice.
a different version of So you're my favorite geographer is not that I thought, like,
And this, I was gonna have a good time.
Where you going?
Okay. Yeah. I'm not really big at human conditions.
Can we go? Steve.
Sorry, my next. Oh my God. Well, yeah, I think.
Folks, I'm sorry to stop these conversations. I'm so sorry, but we've got more to do. We've got more to do. We have the next portion of our program, a panel discussion, and then we have opportunities to have all of you ask questions. So I'm going to hand this off to Allison Carden now, the museum's public historian, who's going to moderate this conversation.
Sometimes our building's a little cooperative.
You're four?
I think it's three.
Okay. And Eva also. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I can sit up on the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm not seeing this.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is the mic working?
It's
We can hear
weird.
you.
No, it's fine.
I'm hearing you. We're
Okay.
That's it.
Right.
It's for the live stream, so you should use it.
Is it working now? Okay, well, anyway, hi, everybody. My name is Allison Carden. I'm no longer the newest staff member at the Sheldon Museum, but the second newest. I am the Public History Fellow funded by the Mellon Foundation. So I've been sort of hired, thank you. I'm helping to develop some exhibits down the line about LGBTQ history in Vermont and migration and immigration in Vermont. And I've been really fortunate to get to collaborate with Andy on this event. And I'm really grateful for you all for showing up and participating. So welcome. And I guess, I'm just moderating a discussion here. So the first question is for Andy. Which is, what was the origin of this project? How did you come across this story?
So back during lockdown, in the height of the pandemic, some of us were baking sourdough. Some of us were crafting. I was learning how to use Ancestry.com. And the reason was because of this article that a friend of mine wrote in a newspaper about the importance of mining the pages of newspapers and magazines for traces, for queer traces, for LGBTQ plus people who, were not identified as such back in the 40s or 50s or long before that. And I reached out to my friend who wrote the article and congratulated her. And then I told her, this article makes me think about my late father's blog that he set up in 1995. It was called farklempt.com. And he wrote everything in that blog. He did restaurant reviews. He archived all of his complaint letters to airlines to get free seats and upgrades. And he had a section within farklempt.com called the Gay Corner. And there he described two of his cousins who were not married, who did not have children, who were in these creative fields, and one of them was Leon. And I told my friend about this, and she said, well, right now, during the lockdown, you can access the New York Public Library's Ancestry edition for free from home. You should find out more about Leon. So I did. And I went down this rabbit hole. It's just amazing. How many people have done genealogical work? I'm curious. A lot of you. Okay. It's just amazing what is digitized now. So I was finding interesting things like what you saw in the presentation, like the World War II draft cards, obituaries, but what blew my mind was finding that 2001 civil union certificate between Leon and Warren, because I went, Dad was right. Dad was right to put them in the gay corner. So yeah, that was the origin.
That's hilarious. It also makes me miss the internet 1.0. Okay, so the next question is for you, Eva. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that on the mic. Sorry. So, based on what you learned from Andy's story today about Warren and Leon's lives, what strikes you as similar or different when compared to Charity and Sylvia, particularly around caregiving, community, and mutual aid?
Well, it's kind of similar and slightly different. Many of you may know that we have this fabulous collection here in the archives documenting this couple who lived here 200 years ago. And the collection consists and documents their social connections, which obviously are one of the most important aspects of being accepted or being part of community. And we in the collection have over 900 letters that documents their connections, not only with very close family members, but basically people throughout their life and in many geographical locations. And I think this aspect of building human connections where you live, with your family, with your friends, and multi-generational connections are important. And I'm not sure if Andy and Leon clearly had these connections around them, but here 200 years ago we talk about these two women who we can document these really robust and familiar and social connections throughout.
So Warren and Leon certainly had multi-generational connections. The friends who I tracked down met them when they were in their 30s and 40s. They're now in their 70s and 80s. And I'm just thinking about my friend Jeff, who's the same age as my mother. He's 85. And the words of advice that he gave me about aging was that, Andy, make sure you befriend people who are at least 1 or 2 generations younger than you as you age.
Next question is for Gail. So, how would you describe the Andrews Inn as a place for community and connection?
So some people have heard of the Andrews Inn and some people haven't, so I'll just give a really quick little outline of what that place was and time periods and history. So in Bellows Falls, which is about 2 hours south here on the Connecticut River, was a bar and hotel restaurant all in one building. And in 1974, a local family bought the building, refurbished it, and was running it as what you might say a straight establishment, open to the public, and really kind of a nice place, because Bellows Falls didn't have nice places back in the 70s. But nobody really came to this nice restaurant because it was a bar town, and it was a blue collar bar town at the time. And they happened to have a son who was gay. And he said, well, I do know people who would love to come and go to the bar here, have these nice meals that you're preparing, dance in the ballroom that you have, and stay in the hotel that's on the, within the same building. And so by 1975, they're marketing it on the weekends as a destination hotel for gay people up and down the Northeast, and they started to come. And over the next probably 10 years, it was open and run not strictly as a LGBTQ place, but it was a friendly place. And by 1979, the family, the Moises family, were ready to sell the business, and this couple that Jeremy Yost and Tom Herman that Andy showed the picture of, they bought it. And then things changed a little bit because they were a couple. They were an openly gay couple that were owning the business. And at the time, or prior to that, people knew that the Moises' son was gay and that it was a gay club and people went there on the weekends for parties. But the family was straight, and it was a different thing back then if you were openly gay and owning a business. That was kind of an unusual thing, even, in 1979. And so there was a little bit of pushback after that. But they sort of settled into it and got to made themselves part of the community. That was their whole point, was that they wanted to provide a place that queer people could come, be safe, have a nice getaway, and leave the outside world outside, and also become part of the Bellows Falls community. And it worked for quite a while until it didn't. And, the 80s had its own problems that started to affect what happened at the inn, and they closed in 1984. But that was, I think, the legacy that as we've started to go back and revisit that 40 years later, what is the legacy? What was starting to talk to Tom and Jeremy and all the people that used to go there? That was the takeaway, that this was community, and that was what was so crucial and important and unique, because there weren't a lot of places where rural queer people could go and find each other, first of all, and also to have this sort of outside influence of the bigger party scene that not a lot of rural people had access to. So that it was special in that regard as well. So we're building that history and learning and talking. There's so many people that are still around who I used to go, oh yeah. And having a whole list of people who have very fond memories of it. And it's been really exciting and wonderful and just lovely to connect with so many of them. And then it makes bridges to other people who learn about, that we didn't even know that we knew, but now we know. And through Warren and Leon, maybe you probably went there. It's so close by. So it's starting to spread out, like the ripple effects of just that sort of unique community experience.
I just want to give a special shout out to Gail and the rest of the Bellows Falls Pride group for bringing this story again to life for the Andrews Inn. Also a special shout out to H.B. Lizito from Out in the Open. That was the original source for collecting the oral histories, from which Gail created the podcast. Gail is also now working on a film about Andrews Inn. And I want to give that shout out because we've learned from Tom and Jeremy, especially Tom, that it was very difficult in the 80s at Andrews Inn. They were having a lot of challenges, and many experiences at the Andrews Inn left them traumatized. And they did not want to return. They did not want to talk about the history. But because of the work of the Pride Committee and these other groups, they're talking about it now, and some of those wounds are healing.
Amen.
So to follow on this question of intergenerational connection and preserving history, Francois, I just wanted to ask you if you could say a little bit about
Could I ask you to do that, please?
how you're thinking about, the friendships and the network that you've developed for yourself, and maybe connect that to...
Video, Francois?
Pardon?
Video?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
No, just photographs.
And maybe connect that...
Get his good side.
Yes, exactly.
Possibly
First of all,
connect
thank
your
you very much for the invitation to be here, and thank you, and everybody else who's been so kind to me. And my friend Bill is back there, and she's over here, one of my wives. So I'm glad to see her. I came to Vermont in 1996. Middlebury College gave me an honorary doctorate. I was really my first desire to try to find out who was here. Previous to that, I lived in Manhattan for 35 years. I was very happy in New York. There was lots to do. I have a book I brought over there called Officer Clemens, it'll give you a lot of information that I'm skipping over. And you'll understand why I'm skipping over it. But when I came up here, it was very hard to meet gay men. And so I threw myself into Middlebury College, and I developed this system of cosmic sons and daughters, pretend wives and pretend husbands. I wanted a sense of belonging here. The college gave me the honor of being the Alexander Twilight Artist in Residence. I'm saying that because my friend Bill back there, he and I have talked about that. And so for 20-something years, everywhere I went around the state, I talked about Alexander Twilight. Now, Alexander Twilight will be veering off on another issue of race because we're not sure he practiced in this community being black and some of the limitations he might have experienced. But I felt some of the same limitations being a black man, a black gay man, and an extrovert. I am not an introvert. I like to be out there. I like to do things. And when I came up here, I told John McCardle, who was our former president, I'm not going back into the closet. He said, what? I said, I'm not going back into the closet. I'm out in New York. And people who know me, I went through some struggles, as some of you will know from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where they did not want me to come out because it would be a negative stamp on the program. And Fred said something I never forgot. People will say things about you that are not true, but they don't care. They want to destroy you. They want to hurt you. So keep it. For 10 years, I kept it to myself, so sort of. And I had a friend. I met him in Oberlin. We saw each other from time to time, but it was what they call on the down low. It was not public. He wanted to get married and have children, so I went through that. Then when I really got settled up here, the kids started coming to my house. I love to cook. I used to love to cook. I've had 2 strokes and I have vertigo. And so when I stand up, I have to have help or someone who comes in to see me every day so that I have a routine that I get up and I do things. A lot of what I do is share how I created this family that took away the loneliness of being black and alone in Vermont. Believe me, I felt that a lot. I kept saying, well, they're nice people. They smile at me. One of my closest friends, Carl Lindholm, one of you will know him from the college, came one year early on and said, oh, we had the most wonderful time. I invited this one over and that one and that one, and we watched the Super Bowl. And I listened. And when it was over, I said, Carl, can we talk? Oh, yes, of course. He was very friendly. He was one of my closest friends. I said, Carl, why didn't you invite me to your party? Just like it's quiet now. That's what he did not have a reason. And he told me he didn't. Why? I said, I like being with you guys, some of the faculty and other people whom I know. I've become very involved with his family. Jane is on, what's the television, radio station where she had the program at
Vermont Public.
Vermont Edition.
Thank you, help. Vermont Edition, she had it for, yes, she had it for a long time. And so I was interviewed up there and back, and my other real contact was Jane Beck over at the Folk Life Museum. Oh, Jane, she really pulled me in. Her husband was a hunter, which I didn't like. They always had that dinner of fowl, the things that they had hunted, and people. I was amazed at the people who came in there. But they asked me to sing. Well, what you mean sing? With those men, with all that stuff, tables full of dead animals. I said, all right. And I was deeply touched how they embraced me and told me that it was special to them and that, yes, they would be quiet and listen to me sing. Well, all right. This this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, whoa, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Oh, let it shine. Let it shine. Mine. Thank you. Just a couple of things I just want to mention. I'm 80 years old, but I'm aging backwards sometimes. Yeah, I even though I had the vertigo, I get up earlier, I get more work done, I feel good, I don't have any bones that hurt, and I do a lot of meditation and prayer. Oh Lord, what a gift. And I invite my children, my cosmic sons and daughters, come to my house. And we were very much involved back, for example, when Obama ran for the presidency. I had meetings at my house. Some friends came, and faculty showed up there. I was very surprised. But because I'm an artist, I'm not a politician, I'm not teaching those courses and all. But they showed up. And I told them, you can have a party at your house, and people will come, I'll come. Well, they never did. Anyway, after we finished watching the television stuff, interviews, debates, and all that, we started singing, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh Lord, this little light of mine, yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I'm cutting them all short for y'all. I don't want to be here all day singing. It's not a concert. That's not what I'm supposed to do. But I want you to know, I related that to my kids. I'll never forget one of the graduations in February in Mead Chapel, what it used to be Mead Chapel. And they had asked Ronald Leibowitz, who was our president, if Francois Clemens could sing something, because I sang for my kids all the time. And there were a couple of pianists around. Well, they said, no, he's going to do When Gamaliel Painter died, he was Middlebury's pride, a sturdy pioneer without a stain. It's basically a drinking song. But I had so much fun singing it, and they wanted me to sing that song. Well, when they called on this particular young man, he stood up, and instead of walking up to the front and getting his degree, he started singing, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh Lord, this little light of mine, yeah, I'm gonna And everybody started joining in with you.
Nice.
My goodness. And so, I had to get up. I did. I got up and I went to that podium. I said, come on, children, everywhere we go, building up the world. So I found music. Every door welcomed me. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Football games, baseball games, basketball games, swimming, out on the field hockey for the ladies. I sang the national anthem for everybody, including in the Montpelier for the new governor. You were there, asked me to come and sing the national anthem. And so I see this person on the street. I'm walking in Burlington. Oh, you're the guy that we've seen you on television and we heard you sing the national anthem. I said, did you ever come to one of my concerts? What? What concert? What are you talking about? I said, I sing concerts at Middlebury College and at different churches, what have you. But we love your voice. And we love, there are many ways to say I love you. There are many ways to say I care about you. Many ways, many ways, many ways to say I love you. There's the singing way to say I love you. There's the singing something special that someone would like to hear. The singing way, the singing way, the singing way to say, I love you. Cleaning up your room can say, I love you. Putting away your clothes before you're asked to do it, and making plays, you'll find many ways to say, I love you. You'll find many ways to say I care about you. Many ways, many ways, many ways to say I love you. I didn't need it.
I want to piggyback on the idea of having these many ways to say I love you. And when we talked about
He's wearing.
Yeah.
famous pool scene, there are many ways to say I love you. There are many, and one of those includes acts of service. We talked last night about singing for you is not just about performing. It's about communication. It is an act of service to sing.
It is.
And when we talked before about the importance of multi-generational connections for Charity and Sylvia, for Warren and Leon, that's an important way to feel connected to your community. That's one way to stem loneliness. And acts of service is another one too. Both Charity and Sylvia were very civically engaged, employing young women in the community. Warren and Leon were also very civically engaged in Townsend. Warren raised money to restore a church. He was not a religious person. And then Tom and Jeremy too, as an act of service, creating this business.
I was just going to open this up for questions from everybody else, but I have one of my own that just to get us started, and it's also kind of in anticipation of our annual meeting that's coming up. So I just wanted to ask all of you if you have any thoughts about the question of documenting these kinds of relationships and all this history. It feels, something that Eva and I have talked about a lot with Charity and Sylvia is just one of the reasons why we have all of this is that they were writing by hand, right? Everything that's digital right now kind of evaporates, and gets sort of transformed into AI and all these other things, right? So I guess, it just feels like there's a lot of tension, right? Because there's a million ways to document right now, and yet, some of them are very ephemeral, some of them are hard to sift through. I don't really have, I just wonder if anybody has any comments about that.
Well, your question about many ways of documentation, one interesting approach, I think, is what Tilly Walden is doing with her graphic novel, which is in production on the life of Charity and Sylvia, is that she's filling in the gaps. And I feel like she's another sister from another mister in the work that I'm doing around Worley, also trying to fill in those gaps. And that type of creative nonfiction, I feel, is as valid as the facts that we're collecting. Any reflections? Sure.
My background is in archaeology and also in history in general, but oral histories are becoming a bigger part of the work that I'm doing, and so having the forethought and the awareness to talk to people who are still around, who remember some of these events that are closer in time to us. And we've all probably had that experience, or as children talking to parents and grandparents, and we don't know its history, they don't know its history at the time, but maybe in our later years we realize what we were being told and what we were being taught, and the importance of that and how that helps shape who we are, and also the thinking about how the dispersal of people and maybe younger generations missing that interaction with the close family, and how your kids get that from you in a way that maybe they're not close to their parents or grandparents anymore. Then they can still find that with other people in their community even today. And it's just as on a personal note, I feel like everybody has, it's a fundamental human right to have access to your history. And queer history is out of reach for some people for a variety of reasons. And so I think just in general, anything anybody can do to document things, and a memory from your father started this, and just how those things snowball into something you don't think is interesting or important actually usually is. So
Yeah, preach.
Yeah.
And I'll just say what you're saying. I kept my kids close to me. They were my reason, not just singing and teaching, but being alive. They gave me purpose to serve. There was always something going on. And I stood there and I said, well, I'm Professor Clemens, but right now you're going through this issue. I'm daddy. I'm daddy. What do you need? You need to come over here and be quiet? You need to come over and let me show you how to boil water? What is it? I'm here. Because that's what Mr. Rogers said to me. I'm here. And I love you just the way you are. Lord have mercy, that man was so powerful. Anyway, just let me say, I started out at the top. That's how I look at it. That's how I say it. Because telling someone you love them is powerful. Not I like you, I love you. And he told me he loved me. I said, Fred, were you talking to me? And he said, yes. I've been talking to you for 2 years. You heard me today. Oh, it fills my heart so much. That's what we need, intergenerational. That's why I have my kids come over. They're not kids, they're 34, another 41. They're not kids, but I call them my kids. And they are frequently coming to see me at the residence at Otter Creek, because I told them I don't have a biological child. I'm not close. My mother and daddy, they're dead. You're it. Well, I'll be damned. They told me, your house is a destination. Oh, we're coming back for that reunion. I mean, there's other stuff going on, of course. Well, we're coming home. We're coming where we can sit down with you and sit in a big circle. There were about 20 of them, yeah, mostly men, a couple of my daughters. And we started singing spirituals. I'm telling you, I boiled like a pig. I thanked God that I could open myself up. And that generation, which is not basically spiritual. They are searching, and they want to know, what is it? What do you feel? I summon the ancestors. What? When do you summon the ancestors? I'll set up in a minute. I told them that intergenerational. I've been re-virginized. That's what I told them. I don't have a lover up here and stuff. So I'm alone all the time. So I said, if you don't act right, if you come late, I'm going to send Gabriel over to your house. You know, the angel, he puts a thing of coal on your lips, and you have no more sex drive. Oh, we'll be there. We'll be there. Don't worry. They not only came, they came on time and frequently early. That's this to express for you the intimacy. There was a woman named Maggie Morgan Wright who lived over in Bristol. She married a white guy and had a couple of children, and they ran a restaurant. She was black. And she called me one day and said, I want to tell you about Alexander Twilight. And that's how it really began. She started telling me things. She said, Thanksgiving comes, we have all these kids up here in the dormitory. They give them a few dollars and say, go buy something. And then she said, I'm going to cook. Will you help me? I said, well, yeah, I can cook a couple turkeys and stuff. So we did. And she died. Oh, what a loss. But I said, who's going to continue this tradition? So I told the kids, everybody's going to cook some stew or some vegetarian or whatever, and I'm going to cook a turkey. And I'm over there, that place where you can get all kinds of exotic meats on Route 7. Anyway, I went there and I got pheasant and I got duck. And we had 19 kids came out of that dormitory that first time. I remember looking at that table. We kept extending it. So finally, Allison Byerly, who was the, what was she, the dean of the? Provost of the college, said to me, what are you doing over there? I said, me, what do you mean? I go to Costco and I shop. She said, who bought, what, $300, $400 worth of groceries? And I bring them back to my house. And we did 50 pounds of rice. What in the world am I going to do with 50 pounds of rice? Nevertheless, I did. They started putting stuff in my basket because they took me everything. I said, I did not order all that. Nevertheless, they were there, they came to the house, and we always cooked and sang together. They filled my heart. Thank you.
Coco, were you turning off the lights to
No.
get us to wrap up?
I wondered this, I was supposed to begin to do something different.
I just wanted to respond to Alison's questions. First of all, for all of you who don't know who Tilly Walden is, she's actually a young woman in her late 20s, I suppose, not even 30, who is writing, she's a graphic artist, graphic novel based on Charity and Sylvia, which clearly sort of talks to this intergenerational kind of carrying on historical project, because as a young woman being interested in someone who lived at the beginning of 19th century is not always that common. But another thing is that I think what Alison has mentioned, yes, we can have curiosity in our family stories and stories of others, but someone has to preserve it and someone has to clearly care about these collections and bring them to public attention, and archives are one of the few places which do it. So if you have interesting stories, Francois mentioned also people of color. We are creating also and trying to uncover stories of people, you know, who are kind of marginalized in our past history and how archives collected. So we are trying to amend it, and importance of really preserving history and these small histories, which at times may not seem to be important for some of us, really bring a lot of richness to our life and the future generations.
Amen.
I want to thank the Sheldon Museum for hosting this event, for being such good caregivers and caretakers for these collections.
Madam Directors.
There's a question.
Well, it's more a comment. Yeah, I'll be brief. It's more a comment. I want to just say that we have LGBTQ history all around us. We just have to notice it and look at it. Many of our stories even today, are, quote, invisible. People are not necessarily identified as, or don't feel safe enough to identify as part of our community and didn't years ago. And so there's very rich LGBTQ history all around Addison County. I worked here, live here. So I would just encourage people to come to the panel in the annual meeting, because you'll get to hear more about lots of local in this area, in addition to very inspiring what's been shared here today. But there's a lot more right around us, right here.
And so, yeah, I'll grab it. Oh, yeah, please, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for this, both what we've been talking about, but the process. I just love that we both got information, but we weren't talked at, and I think that's reflective of all of the projects you're doing. You know, as a queer member of the rural community, I think these projects have always mattered, but in this moment in particular, it matters, and I imagine it's all on your hearts and minds. And so, you know, as history, in particular queer trans history, is being violently erased, I wonder if a few of you want to speak to that. Not the politics of it, but why does your project matter now to you? That would be helpful for me to hear. Thank you.
I'm happy to start us off a little bit, even though I'm not on your official panel, but I was actually just speaking at a conference about Charity and Sylvia and the work we've been doing with Eva and Allison to create this middle grades curriculum that we've done 2 years in a row with middle schoolers. So I think we've had over, I want to say close to 200 middle schoolers that have done a Charity and Sylvia unit, which is about a month-long series of lessons that look at the history of Charity and Sylvia, but also their own stories and their own identity and their own place in the community. And as part of this recent conference I was at, I was presenting with one of the teachers who taught the curriculum, and we were reflecting on some of the student responses. And for the students that identify as LGBTQ+, or they have families, they come from 2-mom families or 2 dads, or they have queer aunts, to see their story included in a curriculum unit that they started their year off with as middle schoolers was transformational.
Yes.
The teacher was talking about how much these were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and she had some of them in 6th grade and had them back in 7th grade. And she said, I had never seen this student write so much when she was responding to the Charity and Sylvia curriculum. And to me, it really speaks to the power of that one story and the power for it to shape one student's experience, and that it may not be all 200 students that walk away and say this was incredibly meaningful to me, but to know that one student saw herself reflected, saw her family reflected, and have that included as part of her middle grade education is really the value of this work on a really human level. And you know, so many other students talked about how awesome it was, and oh my gosh, I didn't know we were going to learn about 19th century lesbians, and but just to really think about that one student that had the opportunity to be validated and to see their story included as part of the American story, was just, I think that's part of the reason why we keep doing this work as a museum and as a team, is that, you know, we're not a huge museum. We don't see 100,000 visitors a year, but I do feel like the visitors we do see and the students that we interact with and the people that come to programs, it can be really meaningful to have that history shared. So sorry to ramble on there, but
Not at all.
Gail, do you want to talk a bit in a personal way, like why the Andrews Inn project is important to you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, absolutely. It's as a little history nerd child who loved museums and documentaries as a kid. I just naturally was drawn to history and learning And to find out that there was queer history literally in my backyard that I didn't really know anything about just blew my mind. And I was alive while the inn was operating, but I was a little kid, and you don't really, you don't understand really what is happening. You're 7 years old. But to revisit it as an adult and start to understand wow, this actually was very unique and unusual, and why is that? And to get curious and ask the questions and say, wow, what is going on here in this town that this bar happened, and all the lives that it impacted, and then to have the opportunity to talk to people and have them talk to me like I'm nobody, and I'm asking them questions and they're answering them freely and happily in a lot of cases, because people want to talk about it. They want to talk about their history and experiences. And it's been humbling and amazing to just be the fly on the wall and absorb what people have been happy to share. And I think the takeaway is the community aspect of it that just keeps getting reiterated over and over, and the safety component, and that how many individual stories, because it's every individual has their story about the place and their experience there, and it mattered to them, whether the wider public of Bellows Falls knew or really cared about the inn or whatever, but every individual who went there, it mattered to them tremendously in the 70s and 80s. And to bring that back to what's going on today and what people are experiencing and what can we do, and it's all very terrifying to have that wealth of knowledge of our forebears and ancestors in the queer community. How did you do it? What do we do now? I don't know. How did you handle this? And I don't know that they have any answers other than you pull together and you love harder and you are kinder, and it has influenced us with the Bellows Falls Pride group there of just having get-togethers and having places where people can come and talk and be together, and there's no agenda. It's just being around each other is just calming, and to start that again, we need to have that individual grassroots stuff. It has to happen with us, and nobody's going to save us, So that was that's the through line and the meaning that it's starting to become for me. Is that here? I didn't think that that's what I was going to be doing. Now.
Know what we're going to be doing.
No, and I'm like, wow, I'm not an extrovert, so to be on a panel and to be talking about stuff and to just talking to strangers about things, that's out of my wheelhouse. But I'm doing it, and because I have a lot of things going for me that a lot of people don't, in that I'm safe. And I have food and I have shelter, and if I can help somebody who's a little bit scared and lonely, in the moment they need it, that's the least I can do. So,
Gail, I think both of us started our projects around the height of the pandemic lockdown. It was a dark, dark time, and I think these projects, at least for me, it helped me to find some joy and some pride. And now we're in an even darker time. So it started off for me as sort of like navel gazing with my cousins, but then I soon felt it was much more than that maybe sharing the story could get people together and to connect and to talk. Any other questions? What time is it?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. We're done. And if folks want to join some of us going to Weybridge to pay our respects to Charity and Sylvia, you're welcome to join us.
You're going to take me home.
Yeah, I'm going to take you home. First, I'm taking Francois first in the car, then we're going to go to Weybridge. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.